Hello, I'm Mark Baer. You're watching the YourTown TV show. I'm with Harriet Lynn, director, producer. We're talking about a new play by Alvin Eng, Three Trees. So let's start talking about you. How did you get to theater? What's your background in this?
Okay, well, I'll try to put it in a nutshell. I've always been involved in theater. Dance was my first discipline, and I came full throttle into it. I went to school for it. At 20 years old, 19, I was working professionally. 20 years old, I was doing national Broadway musicals and working with some incredible people. And it was my life for about 12 years, traveling as a gypsy, we call it. And later on, I got involved in something called museum theater. This is an area that you're able to do a lot of creative things within the history, art, all of these things that I love. And that's one of the reasons I was drawn to this play, because of this, the nature of the play and the people in it. And it are real people. So it was a natural for me to get involved. So that's how I was drawn to.
The name of the play is Three Trees, and it's about the sculptor Alberto Giacometti. So
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about what drew you to this play.
Well, it happened actually on a Facebook. I saw Alvin, who Alvin and I had met some time ago. He was then a visiting professor at Goucher, and I was in Baltimore, and we were both involved with this project together, which was quite wonderful. And so I could see occasionally what he was doing. He's back in New York, and he mentioned that he had this play, what he calls part of a portrait play, part of a series of plays. He was interested in portraiture, and he found out that Giacometti, a very famous 20th century sculptor and artist, had a fascination with this particular model who became like his muse. And there was a whole intrusion and threw the family dynamic off. And I found it so fascinating. I went to Alvin and I said, would it be possible for me to do a stage play reading of this out on the West Coast in the Monterey Peninsula? And he was very enthusiastic about it. And so that's how it all began.
And then he found it, if I'm not mistaken, he was on his honeymoon in Paris and he
Yes.
saw the exhibit.
He could just see it and feel it and then just dove right in. And I thought he did a magnificent job in trying to create these characters. Because when you think about it, how exciting and dynamic is sitting for hours for an artist, to paint you or sculpt you. And so, but he did a very, I think, interesting job weaving together the various characters, the wife of Alberto Giacometti, his brother Diego, who was an artist in his own right. And when all of a sudden this exceptional man, Isaku Yanaihara, who was a Japanese professor and he was a philosopher, existentialism, they met and he became so attracted to him.
So he had just done Isaku had just done a biography or a translation, I believe, of The Stranger of Camus.
Yes,
so
he did.
he was involved with. So we've all just recently seen The Last Portrait that Stanley Tucci directed. Was it Jeffrey
And
Rush?
wrote.
It was Jeffrey Rush that played Giacometti.
Yes.
So the premise of this, again, same kind of madness. We're in Giacometti's studio, but this time the sitter wanted his portrait finished. In this play, they bond, and the sitter, because he had the ability to sit for long periods of time, he did not want to leave.
Right.
And so he allowed this process to go on, which causes all kinds of tension with the wife, with the brother. So let's talk a little bit more about this play.
Well, you described it very well. It really, it's interesting because Camus' stranger, he's the stranger who enters into this family. And put yourself into a 12 by 15 foot studio, which is very small, and where in Paris, and where all of this activity pretty much happens, except the cafe, which they used constantly throughout their day. It was just such an abrupt change of way they worked together, because up until then, they were a unit that just was, you couldn't penetrate.
Let's stop there for a second and talk about the title Three Trees,
Yes.
which is a reference to a Rembrandt painting.
Yes, it is.
And that kind of sums up the brother, the wife, and the artist. And so they're a unit, and each of them had their thing. And here's this fourth person who upsets the apple cart in its way, and that provides the tension of the play.
There's other aspects of it too that he references, and when you see I have to mention that you have brought a lot to this particular stage play reading, because you're going to be showing not only a picture of the Three Trees by Rembrandt, but also some of Giacometti's work as well, that will give a context to the different scenes. And so the visuals are just wonderful, what you've done.
So this production here, which has been really fun to work on,
Thank you. Good.
And it's a great play, and it's for an artist. I just had Jennifer Perlmutter, who just opened a gallery in Carmel here last week, and we're just talking about the creation of art, and it's not a rational thing. It's quite mad, and Giacometti was quite mad. You think that it's a sane situation, and I guess it seems sane when the pictures come out at the end and they sell. But the actual what's going on between them, and the perception, and what's going on between sitter and the painter, you're getting into just all kinds of shady, murky psychology. That's more irrational than rational, especially with Giacometti.
He is obsessed. He's an obsessive person. He thinks morning, noon, and night. And in context, this play is in the 1950s. And he came out of the war, World War II. He had escaped actually to Switzerland because he had to when France was invaded, Paris was invaded. And when he came back, he was trying very hard to understand the human spirit and pared it down to the bone. And people will recognize, they may say, oh, I think I know that name, but when they see the work, it was so original and frightening, because it was almost like seeing people walking out of the Holocaust and moving forward, and completely so lean, and they were trying to find some humanity after this war. And an artist, as an artist, he was and a thinker. He was a thinker. He really identified with people of the existential process. Although he came originally from people like Man Ray and the surrealists who kind of dumped.
He stepped out of surrealism and stepped out more into figurative.
They got very upset because he was now using models. Oh, you don't use models. But anyway, he was focused completely, and then he his muse became this extraordinary Isaku who seemed to have a presence of mind from his Japanese background, his fascination too with the French philosophers of that time that they both agreed upon, Sartre, for example, and he wouldn't let go. And this relationship that continued over several years is beautifully, I don't know if that's the right word, but is very intensely related to in this play. And that's what I think is so fascinating because, again, what is a play for somebody just painting somebody? It's not about that. It's about the people's characters and how they change and they shift. And I think Alvin has done a wonderful job. And I also think the fact that it's a staged play reading, there's two things, well, maybe more than two, but two things I can say. The audience is going to use their imagination, as well as the actors use their imagination to create what is happening. And frankly, I think that is maybe more interesting. I have found stage play readings to be very, well, one thing, they're portable, so you can take it to different venues pretty easily. But besides that, it's not static.
We've had this discussion many times of how to take a staged reading and make it its own art form, so that it's not less of a theater experience, it's a different theater experience.
It is a theater experience, but it's a very intimate one.
Yes.
Very intimate, because the characters are, well, first of all, very close. And there is, for those who may not be familiar with stage play reading, certain directions thread things through so that the audience can put in their mind certain things happening. You don't have to have the set of the cafe. You don't have to have the set of the bedroom or the studio. But just putting those images and using your images too, and the images, the photographs that we found from authentic times, really add to the experience.
Yeah, I think mise en scène, we've created enough of an atmosphere for it to work and for it to have imagination. Let's talk about the cast, because the cast is exciting in this.
Oh, yes, thank you. I want to talk about Keith Decker. Some people know Keith has been here quite some time in the community, and he is going to play Alberto Giacometti. We have Dr. Chris Hasegawa, who is a retired professor.
Perfect.
He also originally was going to be a musician, but his path went into the sciences, and he is going to be our Isaku. Teresa Del Piero, there are people who have followed her career here, I'm sure, for a long time, and she's an exquisite actress. And she is doing the part of Annette, the wife of Alberto, and Fred Bologna, who is going to be Diego, and that is the brother. And Diego is an artist in his own right, and Fred has a fascinating background in both classical dance and theater, and it brings so much to the play. I'm very blessed to have such a wonderful cast.
So this is really exciting. Let's talk about where it's playing and some of the dates.
Okay, all right.
This is the big push.
Here we go. All right. For those who want to go down or live in the Big Sur area, the Henry Miller Memorial Library, we're going to be there over the Labor Day weekend, September 4th. It's an evening performance. It's going to be at 7:30. And people can, it's outdoors, it's exquisite, and it has a big screen. Your images will look wonderful. Then we have a relationship between Ollie from CSUMB and the Gen Train at MPC. It's going to be a live performance, and that's going to be September 7th on a Wednesday at 1:30, and it will only be one act because we are limited to 1 hour there. So, but I can help to give the audience an idea what's going to happen. And then we have a full production again of our stage play reading at the wonderful Sandbox in Sand City. And if you haven't been there yet, you must go there. They have wonderful concerts, professional musicians, wonderful art decking the walls. And I'm very happy to be able to present it there.
But
right, they can go online right now. Actually, anyone can Google and look it up at both the Henry Miller Memorial Library and the Sandbox. It's already on the events. You can get tickets. And I hope I got the date right because I know it's the Sunday.
So this is the play, Three Trees, Alvin Eng. This is Alvin's new book.
Yes, this is his memoir.
Let's talk about, I wanted to just put this out there for him.
Yes, I think it's really important because Alvin is, oh my gosh, he's the toast of the town. He's being interviewed everywhere in New York. He grew up in Flushing, New York. His parents were had both immigrated from China. His mother never spoke English. They lived in the laundry, kind of like living in the studio.
Yeah.
And I think Alvin really identified in a way being the other in this culture. And he even, I love this fact, he was a punk rock musician, singer, and but he's also a professor. And he's quite a special gentleman, and I hope that he'll be proud of us.
Well, it's a fabulous play. This is all very exciting.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm with Harriet Lynn. You're watching YourTown Television, and we're done.
Oh.